In our neck of the woods, sports is tradition. Sports is passion. Sports is family. Sports is fun. Welcome to our house. This is Southeast Sports Plus Live with Simone Eli and Gerhard Mathangani.
It's the day we've been waiting for since the bracket was unveiled. The college football playoff begins tonight, and it's the two closest seeds against one another in game one. 8th seed Oklahoma, 9th seed Alabama will battle in Norman tonight as the college football playoff officially gets underway. The second time ever, a 12-team playoff will crown a national champion. Welcome into Southeast Sports Plus. I'm Gerhard Mathangani, joined by Patrick Walsh. Patrick, I think of all the intrigue and all the talk going into the college football playoff, there were a few things that felt kind of certain. This matchup did feel kind of certain. It's the one that we got, but now that we're into it here, I think the excitement is now at a fever pitch about what this playoff could be now that they've kind of retooled the seeding.
Well, and I think the additional week in between conference championships and then the beginning of the college football playoff only just amplified that. But I think when we were talking about this particular matchup about a month ago when it was a regular season matchup up there in Tuscaloosa, we were like, okay, this is a potential college football playoff matchup.
Right.
We could see both of these teams, especially since Oklahoma won that game. I remember we were talking about Oklahoma, and it was like, okay, you know, this schedule's tough. And if they just manage to go 10-2, they're going to be the best 10-2 team there.
Right.
Well, the offense kind of hasn't, held its weight. It's been the defense that's really gotten them here. So it'll be an interesting matchup tonight, one that I think a lot of people are looking forward to, but also at the same time, I would not be surprised if this was a defensive slugfest.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are coming into this one thinking, well, Oklahoma really hasn't had a great offense all year long. And that's for a number of reasons. Probably chief among them is John Mateer missed some games in the middle of the season. Not only that, they've never been able to really establish any kind of run game going on throughout the course of the year. And it felt like their defense had to put them in really advantageous situations in order to play well. Then on the Alabama side, their offense kind of felt like they were humming for a while, especially in the middle of the year, and really sputtered towards the end, only 7 points against Georgia. This is, to me, an interesting matchup because you have, in my opinion, probably, I would say maybe the best defense of the 12 teams that are in the playoff in Oklahoma. And then you have a potentially good offense that we haven't seen yet out of Alabama. So then it's the other two sides. Does Bama's defense step up, or does Oklahoma's offense step up? And I think when they get on the field tonight, that matchup will be the one that determines it.
Yeah, and honestly, I could make the argument that these teams are about as equal as you could see, and that's what you would expect out of an 8-9 game. But sometimes in years past, especially with the NCAA tournament in basketball, is these 8-9 games sometimes aren't as evenly matched as some might think they are.
Right.
I think when you look at it from just an overview perspective, and we'll talk more of the Alabama side here later on this hour, but when you look at it, Alabama's offense just hasn't been that great. You can make all the excuses in the world. You know, Josh Cuevas has been out. Jam Miller really hasn't lived up to the expectations. He's kind of been dealing with injuries and stuff like that. And, Ty Simpson, who we thought was a potential Heisman winner about halfway through the season, kind of fell off. And it seemed like those numbers have pretty much stayed the same over the last month or so.
Right.
But you're going up against an Oklahoma defense that stops the run. What do you do not so well? Run the ball. So, I mean, I don't really expect Alabama to have too much success there on the ground. But also at the same time, it seems like the secondary for Oklahoma has kind of solidified themselves ever since the Tennessee game. And I remember we were talking with Holden Cruzmark out of KFOR there in Oklahoma City. He was talking about how, this secondary is kind of suspect for Oklahoma. Ever since he's said that before the Tennessee game, I mean, they've been able to shut down offenses. And we could make the argument that Oklahoma's the best defense in the college football playoff. And then Alabama doesn't have a bad defense either. So, it's like two pretty good defenses going up against two lackluster offenses, in my opinion.
Yeah, and it's going to be, in my opinion, a battle of who can, I guess, settle down quicker. How much do you think the home field advantage works for Oklahoma going into this game? Because Alabama has been good on the road in the SEC. I know they lost their opener to Florida State in Tallahassee, but once they got into SEC play, they were pretty lights out.
You know, I look back at some of the most recent Oklahoma home games this year. I look back at the Missouri game. What did Oklahoma do that game? Not much.
Yeah.
I mean, it took a broken play to, I believe it was Isaiah Satania,
right,
who seems to be the epicenter of broken plays that just somehow win them games.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been such a roller coaster for this Oklahoma team this year, because it's really, they're a few broken plays away from being, I don't know, 7-5,
right,
8-4.
Yes.
Like
yes.
This could, they were teetering on the break of 2 or 3 plays, and then they're out, and they're playing, you know, not the greatest bowl game in the world.
Right.
But when you look at the other one, it was Ole Miss.
Yeah.
And it rained that game. I don't remember. I'd have to look at the weather for tonight. I think it's going to be mid-50s.
Mid-50s. So I think wind might be a bit of an issue there.
Well, we were wrong on the show yesterday about the wind.
Yeah, I know.
Thursday night football game. So, I mean, I don't want to have anything to do with the wind right now.
Trying to predict weather and the way it affects the outcomes of football games.
That's not my forte. That's not where I got my degree in.
It was interesting, and we'll visit that a little bit later on here on our show. A great show guest in store for you today. A new face and a couple of familiar faces there as well. We'll have Colin Cody joining us from Memphis. Also Scott Griffin from the Birmingham area. Of course, he covers Alabama very closely. Chester Boucher will join us from Baton Rouge, and Noah Gross out of Austin. Lots of things going on with the Texas Longhorns, both on the gridiron and on the basketball court. We will dive more into tonight's big matchup to start the college football playoff between the Tide and the Sooners. Ole Miss, can they ignore the noise? There's a lot going on right now. Is there a chance for them to ignore it? Pete Golding and company will try to do their best. There's a 12 seed.
Yeah.
The other group of 5 team in this whole thing. Do they have a chance to pull off the major upset? They are, of course, the biggest dog going into this college football playoff. Then we will have our predictions coming up a little bit later on in the program. And we have some great first-round matchups, not just the Alabama game, but a trio of games coming your way tomorrow. And this to me, is a titanic. I think if you're a college football fan, tonight's a great appetizer, and then you can literally sit on your couch all day and literally, or hang out with your friends or whatever, and just watch college football all day long.
Yeah, I mean, it's Alabama, it's Oklahoma to kick off the college football playoff tonight at 7 o'clock Central Time, and then 3 games tomorrow starting at 11 a.m. Miami and Texas A&M. We talked with Parker Ream out of Waco about these Aggies earlier this week, and I think a lot of people around Aggie land are kind of nervous about this game. You don't really ever want to end your regular season with a loss, because that's the most recent thing that you think about, and you know it could help you focus a little bit more for this game, but it could also leave a sour taste in your mouth. So we'll have to see how that one plays out. Tulane and Ole Miss, as you mentioned, we're going to go with Colin Cody next. He's actually on location in Oxford.
Nice.
That's projected. I saw a stat, and I think I said this to you. Oxford is projected to make $74 million in revenue just by hosting that game tomorrow.
That's unbelievable.
Just absolutely unreal.
Yeah.
And then the 12-5 matchup, James Madison and Oregon at 6:30 tomorrow night. We see 12-5 in basketball a lot. That's usually the most picked upset, but I don't know if JMU can get it done. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Yeah,
they are big underdogs going into that one. We were going to give you some of our playoff previews, our projections. I'll ask for a filibuster here, Patrick, on this one. I know you have yours ready.
Yes.
If you want to do yours here, you can do yours here.
Yeah,
I'll do mine later. But here at our station, just to give you a peek behind the curtain, here at our station, Bill Riles, a legendary figure here. He was an anchor, our morning news anchor for the longest time. He retires after 25 years, so we had our station party for him today. So I wasn't able to get the graphic filled out, but we will get it filled out. But congratulations to Bill on a phenomenal career and a great retirement.
Yes, I mean, I hope he does. There was a nice tribute video for him. He played us a pretty funny song. He's a jack of all trades, that's for sure. I mean, absolutely. That dude can do literally anything.
Yeah, and there's a lot of people that are in and around Next Star Nation that are no longer in Mobile that worked with Bill in one way, form, or fashion or another, and they're now at other places. And so it's great to see all those tributes come in.
Yes, and with that, I'll let you do yours later. Obviously, there were some the ceremony there and the little gathering that we had. But here are my predictions, and this is a little bit crazy. This is a little bit crazy.
A little bit. We're looking a little bit in the rearview mirror.
What do you mean?
I mean, woo.
Okay, here we go. Ready?
Woo. All right.
James Madison is going to lose by 28. I mean, okay. I feel like I feel like that's fair.
That's fair.
I don't see a reason why. We'll talk about it a little bit. I honestly think they have the best chance out of the group of 5 teams to win.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I'll save that point for later. The game that we just talked about, Alabama-Oklahoma. I see Alabama winning by 13. And I just think the return of Josh Cuevas at tight end and the X factor for me, I know I said the wild card the other day was if Ryan Williams can get involved in this offense. For me, if Jam Miller racks up 80 yards on the ground, Alabama wins this game easy. Easy.
Yeah,
because I
can see that.
The biggest problem with Alabama is that they're so one-dimensional. Ty Simpson last game, I believe, against Oklahoma, threw the ball 40 times in the first half, and you just cannot win. I've seen the Cowboys long enough in my lifetime to where Dak Prescott used to throw the ball 45, 50 times a game, and they just wouldn't win. You just cannot win football games this day. Tulane and Ole Miss, and I know a lot of people are like, well, Ole Miss is so distracted, there's just no way. There's too much going on. Trinidad's, not even fully committed to playing this game. I think John Summerall, as much as he wants to sweep it under the bus, I think he's a little bit distracted. He is trying to get to Florida as soon as possible because when you look at the Gators, Lagway's in the portal.
Yeah.
They're starting their dual threat quarterback. Now Jaden Baugh, their best running back, is in the portal too.
That's right.
So you got to, start to build your team around these guys probably leaving, and you got to expect Dallas Wilson to be your lead receiver. I know he was limited with injury this year, so I think John Summerall is going to be a little bit more focused on the Florida. I know he really wants Tulane to win, but I look at this game the regular season.
Around,
Tulane had a good chance. They kept it close in the third quarter, but they failed to convert on 3 straight fourth downs. That pretty much sealed the game.
Killed it,
And I just don't see a way that this Green Wave team can shut down Kejuan Lacey. And then at the bottom, I know it's an SEC show, but I really do think this is going to be an upset. Miami is going to beat Texas A&M. I think Texas A&M just hasn't played anybody really all year, and the one time that they do play someone, you could say the Notre Dame game, but in my true and humble opinion, they should not have won that Notre Dame game because there was the most blatant hold on the last play of the game that honestly decided the fate of the Irish season there.
Right.
Because the 2 losses ultimately kept them out in favor of Miami.
Yeah,
so,
and they weren't really fully formed at that time. If you think about what Notre Dame was then as compared to what they were at the end of the season, you could make an argument that Notre Dame might have been way better.
Yeah, and I just don't think that – I think with Carson Beck being a former SEC guy and has played in these moments, Marcel Reed has never played in a spotlight like this. So I think Carson Beck's going to have the advantage there. And then moving on to the second round – I've got Texas Tech beating Oregon.
Okay.
I like the Ducks, but I think Texas Tech is an SEC caliber team. I really do. I mean, all that money going into the program, it's hard to hate. And then Indiana is going to steamroll Alabama. No matter who wins this game tonight, in my opinion, you're one and done. You win a game and then you're out.
Yeah.
Because Indiana, that's a juggernaut right there. And then moving along here, here's the one where people. I might lose some people.
This is what made my eyes go 5 miles wide.
Ole Miss, when you go back to Georgia's win streak, I'm going to throw out the first Alabama game because they won the second one, and that was just, in my opinion, a completely different Georgia team. Since Georgia rattled off that win streak, Ole Miss has had the most success against them. And you could make the argument that Ole Miss should have won that game.
Yeah.
But that was Trinidad Chambliss' first road game against 90,000 people. This is a different Trinidad now. If he played the first 3 games of the season, thanks Lane Kiffin for throwing Austin Simmons in there, or else we would have seen Trinidad in New York City.
Yeah.
I think Ole Miss wins that game. And it's so hard, absolutely so hard to beat a team twice. So that's why I've got Ole Miss in a little bit of a low-scoring battle there. Moving along, Miami, I know you got the nice upset win over Texas A&M, but this is where your season ends because Ohio State will just control the clock, just like what they've been doing all year. They're going to control the clock, and it's going to be a pretty low-scoring affair there for college football standards. Moving on to the semifinals, and here's where it gets frisky. Texas Tech loses to Indiana because Indiana is still number one, and I really do think Curt Cignetti, this is the year for him to go all the way. He's got a better team this year. He's got a better quarterback. No offense to Curtis Rourke or anything.
Yeah.
He's got better receivers, better all-around team, and he knows how to win in the national spotlight. Just look at the Big Ten championship. And then here's the crazy one.
Yeah.
Ole Miss goes to the national championship, beats Ohio State. I do not like Ohio State making the national championship. And here is why. When you look at who Ohio State has played this year, go back to the Texas game.
Game one. Mm-hmm.
What did they win that game? 14-7.
14-7, yeah.
You could make the argument that was the first game of the year, but then they played a bunch of cupcakes. No offense, Illinois, your team is garbage. You deserve to get blown out. You got blown out by the two best teams in college football. And then you go down some more, and then you see the Michigan game.
Mm-hmm.
And they really didn't score that many points against Michigan. They struggled in the beginning.
Right.
And I know it's a rivalry game.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You could say all that, the elements and everything. This team, when they play somebody, doesn't really put up points.
Yeah.
And that's something that kind of concerns me. And then finally, when they actually do play someone good, like number one Indiana, they score 10 points.
Yeah.
So I just don't know if I can trust Julian Sayin in year one.
Yeah.
I think the benefit to Will Howard last year was that he had a little bit more experience coming over from Kansas State. I think Sayin's going to win a national championship, just not this year. And then my national champion's Indiana, because Indiana is still Indiana, and Hoosiers. Hoosiers.
Hoosiers over Ole Miss in the championship game. That is this is a bold take right here. This is a bold take. I like it. A lot to unpack, and we'll revisit this later when I do my bracket. But no, I like it. I like the rationale behind it. Some of the scores are kind of eye popping. I know, like the low scoring game. But you gave defenses for all of them, and pretty strong ones. And I think that if Ole Miss makes a national championship game, do you think that makes Lane Kiffin think a little bit harder about his decision and the amount of pressure that now goes to LSU if Ole Miss is in the championship game?
Yeah, but at the same time, he's going to get money for it. He's got all of those incentives. He just sent those guys up to basically be walking billboards. I think Pete Golding, and we'll talk about Ole Miss here in a minute. Pete Golding is going to have a lot to prove in this first game, but if he can prove that he belongs, I think they're going to have all the confidence in the world. They know they should have beaten Georgia. It's just all going to depend on, can Pete Golding manage these close games being a first-time head coach, and is Trinidad Chambliss actually committed, because he keeps on being on the fence about his future, not totally understanding. Maybe I'll be there, maybe I'll weigh my options if I can get a waiver, but we'll see here. I've got Hottie Toddy going to the national championship, one of the hottest takes that anybody probably ever has.
Probably. I really, outside of Ole Miss, I don't know where else you'd find that pick, but I like it, like the rationale behind it. Ole Miss winning 3 games, Curt Cignetti winning his first national championship. We'll see how it shakes out here in the college football playoff. My predictions coming up next, and we'll put them side by side before the end of the show. Coming up next here on Southeast Sports Plus, we head to our partners in Memphis. He's actually on location there in Oxford inside the college football playoff. Join us for that next. We're back here on Southeast Sports Plus. It is a Friday. It's also day one of the college football playoff. We had hot takes galore. My man Patrick Walsh, if he didn't see the first segment, has the Ole Miss Rebels in the national championship. And our first guest, it wasn't worked out this way. Patrick's been saying this for a while, but our first guest is actually an Ole Miss grad headed to the Grove as we speak right now. Colin Cody joining us from Memphis over there at WKRG. First of all, man, thank you so much for jumping on here before you head out to the Grove.
Oh, no problem. Thank you guys for inviting me. You know, I try to boost up my alma mater as much as I can. And if I sound like a little jittery, it's not because like I have any nerves going into this weekend or, you know, even games down the line as well. I'm just really cool, calm, and collected these days with Ole Miss playing tomorrow.
I can imagine. Memphis hasn't been here in a long time. I mean, a very, very long time. So I think a lot of fans, and I think other fans can sympathize with this. Is the fact that, you know, when you're making those first steps, you don't want to talk too much. You want to have this calm, even keel about you. But this is an Ole Miss program that has gone through a lot in the last 3-4 weeks. They're the only team in the college football playoff that will go into the playoff with the out of head coach that started the season and new coach Pete Golding, with a lot of players that feel unionized, so to speak, about where they stand going into this matchup. First of all, from just where this team was about a month ago to where they are now and everything they've had to deal with, what do you think their mindset is as they head into the college football playoff?
Honestly, to be honest with you, I think that this team and their mindset is pretty much still the same. A lot of people in this area, whether you're an Ole Miss fan, or Arkansas fan, Mississippi State fan, or Memphis Tiger fan, well, Ole Miss hasn't really been talked about as much as that a lot of other teams in the SEC this season prior to like last year when all the chips were in, everything was on the table. You had Jackson Dart, you had several first-round picks come off the table in last year's draft class. So I think about going back to this summer. I remember talking to several guys, Daquan, a lot of guys on defense, transfers, first-time players here for this football team, and their mindset was basically the same thing that they had last year. I mean, I think that we still have a chance to go out and take it all. With that being said, I don't think they've garnered the type of respect, and they also feel like that, especially with all of the hype and hoopla been around Lane Kiffin last month or two. I think that this program feels as, you know, look, we have a quarterback that transferred from Division II football that has numbers that easily – he should have been up there in New York last weekend, but that's another conversation, right? Mm-hmm. You have the running back that leads the most with the rushing touchdowns in the country in Keywan Lacey, and he also could have had a shot at being in New York for that Heisman Trophy ceremony last week. So, yeah, there's a lot of players and aspects for this team going into this second season that they feel like that they've been undermined, and I think tomorrow, though it's the second time that they face Tulane this season, they have a point to prove. I mean, this game, the focus, the Oxford environment, it all has so much revenue and attention to it, and I think that these guys really want to tomorrow afternoon.
We'll talk about the rematch here in a second because, you know, it is just so hard to beat a team twice in any sport. But I wanted to bring up Lane Kiffin a little bit because this team has been dealing with distractions basically for the last month and a half now, ever since the Florida and LSU jobs opened up and all the rumors went around. I feel like, in my opinion, I think the team has handled it well up until lately. Their quarterback has been kind of on the fence about being committed to this team. Are you a little bit worried that Trinidad Chambliss is a little bit distracted heading into this playoff?
I don't. I think, you know, they very easily could have been distracted the last week of the season in the Egg Bowl, playing in Starkville, an early game, 11 a.m. kick. And this is a team that when they faced Washington State early in the season, they struggled. They almost coughed that one up. Oklahoma on the road in Norman, also a tough, close battle there. So I don't think Trinidad's been too distracted, I would say. I think that he has a good support system around him. I know his mother, she's very outspoken about, you know, his faith and what they pride themselves on as a group and a family. And when it comes to distractions, I think he's managed them very well. Going into the Egg Bowl, he actually sent out a tweet just kind of rallying the guys and all the Ole Miss fan base, just saying simply like, look, it doesn't matter who's the coach. The guys on the 11 on the field, they're going to go out there and take care of business, and that's exactly what they did that next Saturday. Going into Tulane, going back to that rematch, that was his second start of the season, and obviously it's going to provide some wrinkles facing a team twice, trying to beat a team twice, and you can see the numbers there. They jumped off the chart, 307, 2 touchdowns. I mean, that's a really 100, more than 100 plus on the ground.
That's the one that sticks out to me.
You know what I mean? Like, this kid, he can play ball, and I think he has the ability, especially being that he was a 0-star recruit, that he can lock in and step up in big moments.
Absolutely. We'll get to Coach Pete Golding's leadership in a moment, but first let's hear from the head coach about his team staying focused.
You talk about, the outcome, and results and all those things over process that you hear from every coach and all that. But our whole goal is we want them to be excited after the game. All right, we're not worried about the excitement before the game. We got to make sure our preparation is kind of like homecoming games in high school and all those. You get through all that during the week and you're worried about, the dance and the parade and all that. And then, there's going to be a lot of people at the dance and the parade. All right. So we got to make sure that we're doing what we're supposed to do throughout the week to prepare really well, to practice really well, to play a really good football team. And obviously all these are 1-0 seasons, and like it has been, the remainder for the end part of both of us, right? If we were going to lose one late on either side, we probably wouldn't be in the position we're in. So it's no different from the player's perspective on that. It's going to take our best effort from a preparation standpoint and an execution standpoint. And, we got to make the fewest amount of mistakes. So we're not getting caught up in the excitement of the fans and all that. Let's give them something to be excited about during and after. And we control that by our preparation and how we play.
Colin, Pete Golding is one of these guys to me that I find him interesting in a couple of different ways because, number one, obviously he's a good football coach and he's been around the greatest of all time. If you just take away the Pete Golding on top and you just look at his resume, he's been with some of the best ever. He's had his hiccups, but his teams have produced. Now that he is the head coach and not the interim, they've taken that away. What do you see of him and some of the ways that he will maybe either stay the same, retool, shift now that he is not only the head guy for this playoff run, but the head guy moving forward in 2026?
Ultimately, I think that Ole Miss made a home run hire with this decision. Keeping a guy in-house, someone that has ties, not just to the program, but to the state. Pete played his ball just down the street at Delta State. I mean, he got it out the mud down there in Cleveland, Mississippi, met his wife. Obviously, he's a Hammond, Louisiana native, so he has some Louisiana ties too. And, we can get into some coaching changes that might be happening a couple of weeks later if you guys want. But with Pete, I don't think you can see him identifying or changing himself. He's a retired football, hard-nosed frat boy that goes out there, and he's already said in that same press conference, he was like, I'm not going to yoga. I'm not doing anything different.
That's my favorite.
He's going to stay the same. I love that part.
So looking at this game, I saw a stat, I believe it was earlier this week, that Oxford is projected to make like $74 million in revenue just by hosting this game alone. So I want to get your opinion. Do you think we should get more of these college football playoff games on campus because of these numbers?
Absolutely. This is the biggest game in the state and history of Mississippi. This is a place that breeds so much talent. They don't have a professional, any type of team, right? That's on a national spotlight. So for this to generate that type of revenue and buzz around a small knit community, that if you go there in June, you'll wonder, wow, where are all the students? Where are all the people? Because it's that old school hometown type of feel. It almost feels like it's a storybook, right? And being there and being a graduate from there, this type of momentum is great for, I think, small colleges and revenue when it comes to why we miss the pageantry of college football.
Yeah.
You don't have the same when it comes to NIL, and obviously with the SEC adding different teams and elements, and it doesn't matter, this player is going to be here next year. It's kind of hard to rally behind certain programs, but when you go back and you look at the fine print of these small town places, these communities like Athens, and I also want to say that I think that Pete, he kind of reminds me of a Kirby. He reminds me of someone that's home. He reminds me of someone that's not going to change himself or anything, and he reminds me of somebody, and I've heard he can fire up the guys. I don't know if you guys saw the video when he was announced that same Sunday evening on November 30th that he was going to be the head coach. Those players, they were excited that Pete was going to be the guy running them out the tunnel. And to his point, it doesn't matter who's going to run them out the tunnel tomorrow. It's all about the 11 on the field that's going to take care of business to keep them going, hopefully down to New Orleans and compete for a Sugar Bowl.
Absolutely. A final thing here. It's been kind of one of those things where Lane Kiffin and Pete Golding kind of take the headlines, but there's been kind of a brewing subplot here between the personnel at Ole Miss and the personnel at LSU. It looks like they're just making basically like NBA-style wholesale changes between these two coaching staffs. What do you make of Frank Wilson, chief among all these guys, saying that he will coach their bowl game, LSU's bowl game, and then soon after be the one of the running backs coach there in Oxford?
Look, I've been in the stadium, I've watched many LSU Ole Miss games. September 25th, third week of season next year. Circle the calendar.
Yep.
Everybody needs to have their eyes tuned to Oxford because it seems like you said, it's getting messy. You got Kevin Smith potentially going to LSU. You got Frank Wilson potentially going to Oxford. This is what you call a bad breakup. It doesn't get any worse than this, and I think it's gonna play out on the field next year in 2026.
Do you think this is the drama that college football kind of needs, though?
It needs it. Yeah, for sure. 100%.
Because, I mean, 100%. I feel like I don't want to say, like, some of these rivalries are kind of, like, watered down right now.
A little bit.
It just seems like it's sports where too much on, like, in a way, it almost seems like on the field we're too much about, like, sportsmanship. And I think sportsmanship's great and all. But
right.
I think when it comes to, like, rivalry games, you got to kind of put that aside a little bit.
There needs to be an edge.
Yeah, some of the chippiness. It seems like, I even look at it on the professional level. Some of these guys are just, friends off the field, so it's like hard for them to actually be rivals,
right?
Like on the field. So
yeah.
I don't know. I think this is good for football, this drama and everything. It's gonna be so fun.
I think there's an edge. I think just like you mentioned, Cody, like that game, the SEC offices did a perfect job of scheduling that game. Of course, they were always going to play it because they are the annual opponents, but to have that game be the first game in the SEC next September in Oxford with Frank Wilson there in Oxford, Lane Kiffin coming back, those coaching staffs. I mean, those pregame shots, I don't know if you're planning to go down, but those pregame shots are going to be absolutely unbelievable just to see how frigid and or warm they are.
It's going to be so many storylines for years to come from this whole saga with Lane, Pete. We're going to be telling our kids and grandkids about what this means and how this might revive all of that pageantry and rivalry in college football.
Colin, you've been awesome, man. I certainly appreciate your time here on Southeast Sports Plus. Safe travels as you make your way down.
Thank you guys so much, and hotty toddy.
Hotty toddy.
I hear you. Hotty toddy for Patrick as well. He's got him in the championship game. That is Colin Cody joining us from Memphis. Coming up next here on Southeast Sports Plus, we head over to Birmingham, another team at the Alabama Crimson Tide looking for a win in the college football playoff tonight. We catch up with Scott Griffin next. The college football playoff begins tonight in Norman, Oklahoma. The Alabama Crimson Tide and the Oklahoma Sooners battling it out in Game 1. We are so happy to be joined by a very busy Scott Griffin. I know your day is packed with the hometown team opening up the college football playoff the first time under Kalen DeBoer. Of course, last year missed the playoffs. There's a lot of hype this year. What are your overall thoughts now as the Tide, try to bounce back from what we saw in the SEC championship game and get their first win over Oklahoma in the last 3 tries?
Good afternoon, guys. I don't feel good for Alabama because, they don't run the ball. And I'm one of the few guys that says, most everybody says they can't run the ball. I think, and you guys have heard me all year, they just don't. When you only have 7 attempts to running backs against Georgia, how do you know if you can run it? That's not enough attempts to know if you're getting stopped. And I think they had 23 or 24 yards out of the 7. And you've heard me preach all year, if you get 3 yards, that's not bad, as long as the other team knows you're not going to do it. I just fear for them giving up on the run. They do have Jam Miller back, but if they give up on the run and go against Brent Venables, who's, up there with Kirby Smart and the other defensive minds in college football, and you make yourself one-dimensional, good luck with that. With your quarterback not playing well, by the way, the last month, probably because you're not running the football is in big part. So you got that. I'm sorry, and you got that, and then you've got the worst punting now in the league and a bad field goal kicker.
Right.
That's not a great recipe to beat Oklahoma in a place they've lost 10 times in 26 years. So I think they got to play very well to advance.
So we'll talk about a little bit of the run game more here in a second, because Oklahoma, I feel like their defense is just that's their priority, is to stop the run, and then having R. Mason Thomas back for this game probably won't help that. But when you look at the Alabama side, it feels like the continuity on offense has been hindering Ty Simpson's performance here a little bit. How much of an impact is getting Josh Cuevas back going to be for the Tide tonight?
I think it helps because if they bring a lot of different blitz packages and pressure schemes, which I think they will, obviously the tight end normally is in a shorter route pattern and a route tree normally, although he gets down the field pretty good. So I think it's very good. I think he kind of became a safety blanket for Ty Simpson. I think he finished with 30 catches on the year or close to that, and I bet 20 of them, if we looked at it, came in the last half of the year. There it is, 30. I guessed it right on the mark there. But I would bet 20 of those came in the last 5 games, 6 games maybe. So him being back really helps as well. But you got these guys back. Hopefully Parker Brailsford is healthy at center and different things. But man, if you can't run, it doesn't matter if you have the greatest wide receiver. And look, they've got 3 great wide receivers.
Yeah.
But what does that matter? Because they haven't been a great pass blocking team. They say they are not a good run blocking team. So I'm kind of wondering, it's kind of like Nick Saban said in the old video. What can you do? We're trying to find something you can do, right? So if you can't pass block and run block well, you got problems.
Exactly, and trying to hang your hat on something, and they're trying to hang their hat through the passing game. There are 2 tight ends, and Cuevas and Danny Lewis Jr. That were the topic of discussion for head coach Kalen DeBoer.
Experience, athleticism, just consistent in everything. Knows his assignment. He's been in the system now 3 years, and so he can kind of do it all. He's comfortable in the box, on the line, flexed out, all the little things that we really utilize our tight ends for. He's just extremely comfortable doing it. Yeah, both of them will be available. And so, again, the progress continues to happen. And, Danny's is just going to continue to be ongoing like it has. And so, we're just utilizing him just to certain packages and, because he's not necessarily an every play type of guy as far as just with the limitations he has. And so he'll be ready to go, but he's a big body in there that we can utilize in ways, and he knows the offense really well also.
Scott, who would be your X factor for the Tide this game in order to get a win?
I may go with somebody you're not expecting me to go with, Parker Brailsford. He was not good against Georgia. He was banged up, they said. Georgia got great pressure on Simpson made him look rattled. He's been kind of playing rattled the last 2 or 3 games. If he's healthy, he has got to be making the right calls on all the defensive fronts for Oklahoma, who's bringing all this funk from everywhere. So, you know, I'm not even going to say a skill guy. I say Parker Brailsford. If he's healthier, he's got to make the right calls and get that offensive line in the right spots, man, or they don't have a chance.
Right, exactly. I always find it interesting whenever you have like the old Big 12 offenses when it was just high flying, scoring up and down, and there would be certain quarterbacks or certain head coaches that would say something similar to this. We have to beat 2 defenses. We have to beat the defense that we're playing, but we also have to score more points than the defense that we know will give up. I think this game is kind of the opposite, where both defenses are really good heading into it. As you compare Alabama's defense going into this game, 0 turnovers against Oklahoma the last time. How do you figure they will fare going into here to this matchup against John Mateer and company?
They've been pretty good, and they've been really aggressive, and they need to help the offense by turning the ball over if the offense plays like it has the last month, and it needs some help. And that's probably going to be the key. It sounds, you know, old-fashioned and cliche-ish to say, you know, turnovers will be key, but it usually is in a competitive playoff-type game and format. So who's cleaner on the offensive line, and then what defense can possibly try to punch the ball out and do different things like that? So, you know, I don't think this game's going to be higher than the 20s apiece. It might even be in the teens. Right. Who does that favor? I don't know. To your point, those defenses are really good, Gerhard. So, you know, the one that makes the least turnovers, I guess, keeps it clean.
Yeah, and that's
crazy.
That's the way Alabama played early in the year. Scott, something that I know that you've heard and seen, I've heard and seen over the last almost month or so, ever since this Penn State job opened up. For some reason, Kalen DeBoer's name will not leave the headlines from talking heads on national in TV, whether it's in print, in our space. Do you believe any of this noise now that Michigan continues to be in the headlines? I think I saw it on PTI the other day that they were talking about it. And what is your overall take of where Coach Kalen DeBoer is heading into this matchup?
I think if he wins, it's a moot point. I think if he loses, I think it's, you know, I don't know if it's 50-50, but it might be 35, 65, 40, 60 that he'll listen. And when they say they're not talking to other teams, well, of course they're not. Their agents are. Their representatives are. Obviously, any coach is going to listen to somebody that makes an offer. And if he loses, I would bet Michigan contacts their representatives and sees what's going on with that. This is a huge game, for far bigger ramifications in advancing in the college football playoffs. It's big for Venables to further what he's doing after a tough year or so, and then doing well this year. Huge for DeBoer because, you know, he kind of ended the season on a down note again. He's 4-4 after November 1st in 2 years at Alabama, almost 3-5. So he needs some big wins here late in the year, and then now this Michigan thing hanging over him. So this game's got some important things dangling from it, you know?
Do you think this is all just a Jimmy Sexton deal with all of this noise and everything?
No, I don't think he's trying to get him more money. And I've heard that, like you guys, I'm sure have, that Alabama's working on a new deal for him. And I'm thinking, why?
Right.
A new deal for a guy that went 9-4 and might have a 4th loss here? Does that get you a new deal when you're already in the top 5 in America and getting paid? So I don't know about that. Normally, yes, Patrick, that would be the case. Yeah. But I think it might be more so Michigan wanting to get a clean, good coach, one of the top names, obviously, and a guy that played against them in the championship game a couple of years ago. So I think there's definite interest on Michigan's part. There's more interest on DeBoer's part if they lose than what your point was, Gerhard, Penn State. That was all one-sided.
Right.
But Michigan's a different animal, as we all know.
Yeah, it should be a really interesting thing to follow. Scott, I know you're very, very busy going into it. By the way, quick thing, do you have a prediction? Do you make predictions in these kind of matches?
I think Oklahoma, I've been saying for the last week or so, I think Oklahoma wins this game.
Wow.
You know, I think it's 21, 24, 17-ish type of game, maybe not even that high scoring. But I think Oklahoma beats them, and we'll see what happens with all what we just talked about.
I was going to say everything that you just opened up in those smaller percentages, the 65-35, I think those get wider if Alabama does lose, and certainly a lot of talking points. Scott, I know you're very, very busy, man, and I know it's a huge game day for you and all the audience there in Birmingham. Thank you so much for your time here on Southeast Sports
Thanks,
Plus.
man.
Absolutely.
We'll see you guys later. Thank you.
See you, Scott. So that is Scott saying, hey, that he thinks that the margins are smaller if Kalen DeBoer wins the game, but he's predicting not to win the game. So the storylines could be galore for them and for Alabama going into this game.
In a year where it seems like the stories never end, this would just add another wrinkle to that. And I'm shocked because I saw the stat that Alabama hasn't lost to the same team twice in a year since like 1800.
Yeah, I think they were called, at the time they were called like the Birmingham Football Club or something like that. It wasn't even like the University of Alabama, like actual football team. It was insane. And so it will be interesting to see not only watch the game just because the game interests, but then also the ripple effect from this game. And if you believe like Scott, and I believe the exact same thing, it could be interesting thing for Alabama moving down the road over the next few weeks, even before we crown a national champion, what goes on with that program and the program that's up there in Ann Arbor. Certainly looking out for that. Also, we're clear to close out hour number 1 of Southeast Sports Plus on this Friday. Stay with us. Closing up our first hour here on Southeast Sports Plus, game day in the college football playoff. Alabama, Oklahoma get on the field. We just talked to Scott Griffin a moment ago. It covers the Alabama Crimson Tide very, very closely. Came in with some interesting takes. If you missed it live there, you can catch it on demand here a little bit later on. But Patrick, there's a few wrinkles of this college football playoff that are different from last year. Number one, there's not as much emphasis on the conference champions, so to speak. However, that said, like we don't have a conference champion like we did last year, have a bye that didn't deserve a bye. That said, 2 group of 5 teams are in, most notably JMU.
Yeah, and I don't think anybody coming into the season really thought that this was going to happen. So as we start to progress here in the coming years and the 12-team playoff, which presumably will get expanded even more, the playoff in general will be refined moving forward to get the best possible results. But you brought up JMU. Do they stand a chance? against Oregon. They're 21-point underdogs.
I want them to. And yes. You and I, we were in New Orleans at the beginning of the season, just before the season kicked off at Sunbelt Conference Media Days. And JMU was a program that in the last 3 to 5 years has been very, very consistent. First under Coach Signetti, then under Bob Chesney. This is a program that I feel like they have the makings to be a very, very good Group of 5 program moving forward. Almost like what Boise State was. I just don't see it.
Yeah.
Tonight against or tomorrow night, I should say, against a really good, really feisty Dan Lanning Oregon team. I think it's one of those games where it would take a perfect game for JMU and almost a complete disaster for Oregon for them to pull off the upset.
But, I mean, at the same time, I feel like in basketball, I think it's definitely harder to pull off an upset in football than it is in basketball because basketball, you can just have one guy take over.
Right,
I mean, you don't usually see in football just one guy take over since like Johnny Manziel in like those days where there was one guy literally carrying the entire team. But
exactly.
When you take a look at the numbers, I mean, these are two coaches that I haven't looked at the schedule, but presumably going to be going up against each other next year. I would assume that Oregon would play UCLA in next year's Big Ten. But you look at some of these numbers, they pretty much stack up evenly. Now, I know JMU plays in the Sun Belt,
right.
So, I mean, you got to give a little bit of grace there. But they run the ball well, but so do both teams.
Mm-hmm.
The big thing for me are those bottom two stats. The turnovers per game, JMU averages 1.2, and Oregon just under 1. And then the takeaways, Oregon averages a takeaway and a half per game to JMU's 1.
Yeah.
Those numbers, I will say, you got to pay attention to in this game. It's going to come down to the takeaways. And I've crunched some numbers here.
Okay.
So I've done some of the math.
Yeah.
And I have a scenario where I could see JMU winning.
All right. Give it to me.
If JMU turns over the ball 0 times, which, again, you'd have to have that perfect game.
Right.
And you'd have to have good success running the ball.
Mm-hmm.
And Oregon turns the ball over at least twice, JMU wins this game. Because when you go back to that Indiana-Oregon game, I don't remember exactly how the turnovers occurred, but it might have been a couple of interceptions by Dante Moore. But I just know 2 or more turnovers, Oregon loses the game.
Oregon loses, yeah.
And, I mean, JMU's playing with nothing to lose. They're playing with house money at this point.
That is the biggest thing. Is I think that they're playing loose and playing free. But these are their road games so far this year. At Louisville, at Liberty, at Georgia State in Atlanta, where that stadium is empty as all get out. At Texas State in San Marcos, at Marshall, and at Coastal Carolina. They have seen nothing like what is about to happen at Austin Stadium. And if you listen to people who played in the old school Pac-12 and the people who've played there recently, they say that is the hardest, the loudest stadium just by the shape of it, just by the way it's orchestrated. One of the loudest stadiums ever. I just think just from an environmental standpoint, it's going to be hard to try to get a win there.
You know, it brings up the question real quick before we get out for this first hour. Better chance for the upset, Tulane or JMU?
Tulane, there's no question to me. I think it's Tulane. Yeah. I think that you mentioned it, they played so poorly in that first game. I don't think they play as poorly, and I just think JMU, the elements and the team is just too much. And it won't, like you said, it won't be bad. It will be happy to be here.
I want to say JMU, but I think it's got to be Tulane. I've had enough crazy takes for hour 1.
Hour 2, Southeast Sports Plus is next.
In our neck of the woods, sports is tradition. Sports is passion. Sports is family. Sports is fun. Welcome to our house. This is Southeast Sports Plus Live with Simone Eli and Gerhard Mathangani.
Welcome back to Southeast Sports Plus. Hour number 2 starts on the court. The Arkansas Razorbacks will face Houston on Saturday, and for a very special cause, the Never Forget Tribute Classic, honoring those, the children of those who lost their lives there on 9/11. So really kind of a double dip of good basketball, but for a good cause. Welcome to Southeast Sports Plus. I'm Gerhard Mathangani, joined by Patrick Walsh. Patrick, this is an Arkansas team that is surging, that is playing really well. I would say over the last few games, Coach John Calipari, he's talked about this crew in a lot of different ways, talking about 8th grade basketball all the way to playing well on the court and getting some big wins. The next challenge is Houston, but this is also a challenge that is also really good for a good cause there as well, honoring those who lost their lives on that day.
Yeah, and I know there's plenty of good causes that or good charities that donate to such good causes when they came out of this tragedy. I think of Tunnels to Towers as another one.
That's a huge one,
that's been in the news a lot. But this one it's unfortunately going to be a little bit overshadowed just because of college football this weekend, but it is a monster matchup, and I think this is the biggest matchup. I'd have to go back and check all of the matchups, but between these two teams and how good they are coming into this season. Obviously, Houston was playing for a national championship last year. Teams that are coached by John Calipari will always be good. So I want to say this is one of the biggest matchups of all time, but as you mentioned, it's just for such a great cause.
Absolutely, and John Calipari and this Arkansas Razorback team, coming into this matchup, I think there's a lot of great storylines. We've listened to our friend Courtney Mims. She's been kind of like the truth sayer for what this team was back when they were not good and back when they were shaky at the beginning of the season to where they stand now. They have the reigning freshman player of the week and SEC player of the week. And, of course, you have Acuff, who had a really fantastic game coming up last Saturday. This is kind of these are the last push here before you jump into SEC play. What do you want to see from the Razorbacks as they now go into another big game where they can put another check mark as far as Q1 wins on their resume?
Well, I'm just going to stick with basically what I've been saying all year. I just want to see this team play good defense because that has always been the Achilles heel for John Calipari coach teams. They will always score points. There is no question about it. It doesn't matter who he's got. He's got all of the new freshmen, all of those great recruits, and he'll recruit every year. It seems like any of his teams just reload, and he always has, lottery picks in the NBA draft. It's just, can he develop the defensive side? We've seen Jack Golke out of Oakland kind of ruin his career there at Kentucky and basically, chase him out of Lexington and down to Fayetteville. So, defense is the saying, defense wins championships. And it's a little bit cliche.
Right.
But I think it is the case here because, as I mentioned, his team score. It's just, can you defend the three-pointer and can you defend the other team's best player? They kind of got away last week. JT Toppin on Texas Tech still, I think, dropped like 35 points. So they kind of got away with it last week because Texas Tech really doesn't have any depth outside of JT Toppin. But Houston, they've got depth. They've got a couple newcomers, but they also have veteran presence.
That's exactly right. Basketball is one of those weird sports as opposed to football as it relates to defense because in football, you say defense wins championships, but that is a different personnel. That's a different group of players that are walking on the field to play defense. We see it in baseball all the time. A guy's on a slump, he's in center field or he's at third base. He makes an incredible defensive play, and where does that confidence go? Right to the time he steps up at bat. And we've seen plenty of times you get a web gym, so to speak. I'm aging myself, but those old school web gyms on Baseball Tonight on ESPN. You see a guy get a web jam, and then he hits a home run the very next inning or 2 innings later because you have that confidence. I think basketball works the same way. In a weird way, when your defense gets solid, it improves your offense and improves your stamina there on offense. The Arkansas players talked a little bit about that, how one side can kind of help the other, one hand washing the other, so to speak, there as defense helps the other.
That just kind of plays to the mindset of the guys that we have, honestly, the way we are in practice, being in the right spots, reading, helping your teammate on the court. So it's all just habits, and that's something we want to continue to build on as we, start SEC play, start next game. So it's important that we continue, to strive in that, and I think that's going to, be the impact of our, spark offensively, defensively.
That's just who we are. I feel like our best offense is our defense. So just starting with the defense, we're a great transition team. So getting the defense to stop and getting the transition, that's what we do and that's what we work on.
And now let's move to the Houston side. This is a team that has been unafraid to schedule SEC teams. Coach Ralph Sampson and company, obviously last year, a very, very good run. A team that was kind of led by their defense. You don't have to talk about defense with Houston. That's what they're known for over the last few years here. What do you make of this team as they also try to get a Q1 win before they go to SEC play?
Well, I think they're that perfect mix of, as I mentioned, veteran presence and freshmen that have kind of stepped up. And the one guy that I have noticed take a major leap this year is Emmanuel Sharp. And he's averaging 17.2 points per game. He's appeared in 118 college basketball games, and they were all with Houston. So, he's a little bit of an outlier here.
That is rare.
It is rare.
It's hilarious because, to people of a certain age, I love your graphic there with all games with Houston.
It doesn't happen anymore.
It doesn't. And especially in the days of one and done, you typically stay at one school for all that long.
You got Chad Baker-Mazara on his 7th school and his 25th year of life. So, it's just like, you just don't see it. But I think this is a guy, I think SEC fans remember him from last year in the national championship. I don't want to say he lost Houston the game, but he had the game-losing turnover there as the shot clock expired to basically give Florida the national championship.
Yeah.
And I bet you, as a former competitor, that's got to bite at you all off-season long.
Right.
And this guy, I bet he has been in the gym working on that nonstop. I think last year he averaged 12 points per game. Yeah. Now it definitely helps that LJ Cryer was still there and Joseph Tugler. Both of those guys no longer there. They both moved on to the professional ranks. And this guy, Emmanuel Sharp, he's just stepped up, averaging almost 18 points per game. And their lone blemish was a loss to Tennessee, which honestly, in a tournament in the Players era, which was just absolutely stacked this year, and it's not going to be a bad loss by any means.
No question at all about that. And we got a chance to hear from the Houston head coach and Ralph Sampson on the significance of this game and, most importantly, this event.
So that summer, I was coaching on that USA team, and we were in Indianapolis playing where the Pacers play. And I just remember all the little miniature American flags that was flying all over that arena. And George Karl was the head coach, myself, Greg Popovich, and Mike Montgomery were the assistants. And just everywhere you go, it was a common refrain of USA, USA, USA. And the height of patriotism in our country was built around 9/11. And for a long time, it was right in the front of all our thought process. But the one thing I remember about that is never forget, and that's why this is so poignant, is we're playing a game where right across the river or the bridge from the Twin Towers and what happened that day. And this is a good reminder, especially this time of the year, to be thankful for what we have. Have a season of gratitude for where we are and what we have, and appreciate it. And a reminder not to forget what happened, especially all the people that lost their lives.
I think Ralph Sampson kind of said it beautifully. The fact that, this game, it means so much more. This will be a good test for his basketball team, but for him to be able to give those lessons to his team about the importance of this game, I think it's really special.
Yeah, and I mean, Kelvin Sampson's been around the program 100%. For so long and around college basketball for so long. So, I mean, he's an icon. He's been there. He knows a lot about the sport and obviously a lot about life in general. But with that, we're looking forward to that game, but it's time. You had to filibuster for a little bit, but it is time for your bracket.
Yeah.
Because you clowned me earlier for my crazy predictions. Is that Oregon in the national championship? Take it away.
That is Oregon in the national championship, and I have to admit to you, I had to do this twice. I had to give you two different brackets because of the way this one played out. Our first rounds are similar, so I won't go through it all because I agree with a lot of your standpoints and your viewpoints on it. I just think Oregon dusts JMU. Great season for JMU. Coach Chesney will do a great job at UCLA. JMU gets a new coach. Everything's over. Oregon cruises. I think Alabama tonight, I think the offense does get rolling. You mentioned Josh Cuevas. I think Jeremy Bernard. I even think Ryan Williams has a huge game today. I think they score just enough. And then when Oklahoma's pressing, that's when Bama gets the turnovers.
Boom.
That's the reason why they hold Oklahoma to 17 points. 28-17, the final score there. Ole Miss, Tulane. I like Ole Miss, not by the same score as before, but another easy to easy-ish win, 14 points over the Green Wave. Texas A&M, Miami.
Wow.
This is a game I've been going back and forth on. This feels like, and old school gamblers will know what I mean when I say this. This feels like a dog with fleas. It's the dog that everybody likes. And when everybody likes a certain dog, because if you ask, you're asking everybody. We ask on this show, other places ask, what's your favorite underdog going into this matchup? Everybody likes Miami, and I think it's for two reasons. I think it's from the last time we saw Texas A&M, they were getting dusted by a Texas team that lost 3 games. And then Texas A&M, 2 weeks before that, played South Carolina and had a storm back in the largest comeback in school history, 27 points. I think they right the ship, but I think Mario Cristobal pulls a Mario Cristobal, and there's something that happens, a 2-point conversion that goes awry. Yeah. There's something that happens there. That's the reason my score is 28-27.
Here's what I'll say about that game, and I know I picked Miami, but I will say this. What have SEC fans, particularly Georgia fans, known about Carson Beck? What does he do? What seems like
in those moments.
Every time.
Chokes in those moments, yeah.
He throws like these 3-4 interception games, and Miami just cannot handle that.
Right.
But now I will say on the other side, Texas A&M really doesn't get – they don't force takeaways like some of these other defenses do. So that's the only reason why I think Carson Beck will win this game.
Yeah.
But when he goes up against a more stout defense, and it's nothing against Texas A&M's defense by any means. I mean, their defensive coordinator's going to Kentucky.
Yeah.
And their offensive coordinator just took the head coaching job up there in K-State.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you don't know if those guys are distracted. There's we want to talk about distractions. I mean, there's distractions all over the place.
Yeah.
But I don't hate the pick. I mean, you could definitely – this is kind of like that Alabama-Oklahoma game where it's such a toss-up. It can go either way.
Right, and that's the reason why the score reflects it. It's 28-27 here, and I just think that it's going to be a razor-thin margin, and whether it's a Carson Beck interception or mistake or whether it's a Mario Cristobal mistake, I just feel like we see something like that happen in College Station, not to mention Miami has to go there on the road. So then moving on to the second round, Texas Tech and Oregon. I like a high-scoring game. Texas Tech, I don't quite fully believe in. I know you call them like an SEC team, and they look the part. They certainly do look the part. But I just like Oregon even more. You'll see the reason why later, and if you're looking at the bracket, you see why. Alabama and Indiana. I like Indiana in this game for Bama going out to the Rose Bowl. This will be a very, very good crowd. I think this game is a lot closer than people think. But I like Indiana in the matchup.
Well, first of all, Alabama fans have bad memories about the Rose Bowl with Michigan a few years ago. You think Alabama scored 27 points on that Indiana defense?
I think that.
What have you seen? What have you seen from the Alabama offense that tells you that they can do that?
It's not recent memory. What I'm hearkening back to is what they were week 8, week 7, week 8, week 9, week 10. I think they tap into that a little bit. They only do that against Indiana because they have the buffer game against Oklahoma. I think they scored 28 points against Oklahoma. That brings back the confidence that they had when they went on that winning streak, and that's the reason why I think it's a bit of a high-scoring game. But I do think Indiana's offense with Fernando Mendoza, I think he lights up Alabama's defense, and that's the defense doesn't get really lit up all that much. I like their Indiana in that matchup. I get why you had that question is though, because we have very precious little evidence over the last month or so of Alabama's offense being able to score.
Well, I mean, confidence is everything. And if they do manage to right the ship tonight against Oklahoma, I can definitely see it.
Yep. So I think it's one win and then done for Alabama, and let the DeBoer rumors begin.
Oh, I'm looking ahead.
Then it's Georgia and Ole Miss. I am completely opposite of you. I think that they're going to run into a Georgia team that is going to absolutely steamroll them on defense. And I don't see Trinidad Shambles having a good game. This could be the blowout of the second round. I like Georgia big in that matchup over Ole Miss.
It's just personal at this point.
and then Ohio State, Texas A&M. Like Georgia, Ole Miss, I think Ohio State blows them out. And at that point of the season, like you mentioned with Colin Klein and Will Stein, I just think that at that point, your O coordinators have a foot out in both doors. Yeah. One going to Manhattan, one going to Lexington. I just think Texas A&M, they're happy to be here. They lose to the defending champion, Ohio State. Then Oregon, Indiana. I like Oregon there in that matchup. Reason being, I just really like Dan Lanning. And I think that the same confidence that they brew from that Texas Tech win, they spill it over to the game against Indiana. And I just think Dan Lanning has something for Fernando Mendoza that he hasn't seen. 24-28.
Dan Lanning winning a big game.
Yep.
Ooh,
yes.
That's a big rivalry right there.
A lot of star power on the field. Georgia, Ohio State might as well be an NFL game. I mean, there's so many NFL bodies that will be there on that field. I like Ohio State in a slim 1-point game. I have to admit to the audience, I had Oregon winning the national championship, and then I said, no, Patrick, not yet. I can't do it. Jeremiah Smith, Julian Sand, Carlos Tate, Ryan Day, they hoisted the trophy for the second straight year.
Well, I mean, we definitely were different in our picks. I'm still rocking with Ole Miss making the national championship, but losing to Indiana. Dan Lanning and meaningful games, they don't really go well together. Just look at that Ohio State game last year. They were totally unprepared.
Yeah.
And, you guys heard my takes in the first hour about the Ohio State and when they actually play someone, they just can't really score points.
Right.
So that's just why I'm kind of fading Ohio State this year.
Yeah.
Carnell Tate, great talent. Jeremiah Smith, great talent. But I just think the inexperience of Julian Sand, I know he won the passing completions and everything.
Right.
And he's going to break Bo Nix's record, but he hasn't really played in a playoff game.
Elite defense.
I will say, as I mentioned, Will Howard's experience definitely helped Ohio State last year after the Michigan game.
For sure, yeah. No question it did. And it'll be a really interesting playoff to watch. I have a lot of points in mind, a lot of points scored. That might go right. I think the defenses will show up, but I'm sticking with my picks for right now. We'll also get some picks from our good friend Chelsea Boucher joining us from Baton Rouge coming up next. Back here on Southeast Sports Plus, hour number 2 here on this Friday, gearing up for the college football playoff. And we will do so with one of our favorite guests, Chessa Boucher, joining us from Baton Rouge, Louisiana. There has been a lot of talk over the last few weeks about LSU, of course, with Lane Kiffin. And now there's a lot of talk about Ole Miss. Of course, all of this started when Lane Kiffin issued the ultimatum to his assistant coaches. We have seen him walk that back both behaviorally and from the words and from the contract language that LSU is going to pay whatever success that Ole Miss has in the playoff. Now, as you look at the playoff and as you look at your former school there in Ole Miss, what are some of your overall thoughts of this team before we dive there into the Bayou Bengals?
Man, like I told you on the break, I don't really know what to think of this team. Like, are they all bought into Pete Golding? And Pete Golding and Lane Kiffin, that is so stark of a difference that to me, I'm like, are they comfortable with somebody like that who's more in your face, or do they like the troll who's kind of more introverted and very chill as opposed to Pete Golding? I don't know. And I think we're going to see how they show up on Saturday, but it's just so different. To me, I feel like this Tulane team could be dangerous for Ole Miss because especially the whooping that they gave them in September, it's easy to be like, oh, they're nobody. Let's look forward to Georgia and who we're going to play in a few weeks. And so to me, I just feel like Tulane could be sneaky and could kind of come out with a better game plan. Obviously, I would not expect it to be a blowout. I expect it to be close, but I wouldn't be surprised if Tulane snuck in there and did something that nobody expects them to do. And so I don't know what to think about this team. I think John Summerall is a phenomenal coach. I hate that he's now going to be in Gainesville because I love when Florida sucks because I'm a grad of both Ole Miss and LSU. So when Florida sucks, I'm happy with it. So I don't know what to think of it. I would be kind of a little excited if Tulane does pull the upset just because of everything and then all the Ole Miss fans going ham like they have, understandably so. But man, it just gets so spicy with LSU trading coaches, and now there's 17 total trades between coaches and the coaching staff for LSU and Ole Miss, and it's just like, this feels like a bad breakup that's only getting worse.
So I want to ask you about that because I feel like you have to be on the fence about Frank Wilson, because I know when he was named the interim head coach, you talked about how refreshing it sounded in comparison to Brian Kelly, but now, you know, he's still currently, he's going to coach this team through the bowl game. But now he's headed up to Oxford, so we basically have that trade, as you mentioned. I'm just waiting to see if the Ole Miss running backs coach is going to go down to Baton Rouge, and so then we will have the GMs and the running backs coaches traded there. So I just wanted to get what you thought about Frank Wilson taking this job.
I assumed something was going to go down because everybody, especially here in Baton Rouge, they were like, why haven't they retained Frank Wilson? Why has there been no talk? And I think the days that kept coming and there was no conversation, it kind of shows you that either they already have their guy and their running back coach in Oxford who we're waiting on still to come down to Baton Rouge, and then where does that put Frank Wilson? That would be 10 on-field coaches already with no spot for Frank Wilson. Right. Frank Wilson's not going to go from associate head coach and the running backs coach to now an analyst role at LSU. So then all of a sudden, Pete Golding, they have a history. Pete Golding was the first call that Frank Wilson made when he was at UTSA to come be his defensive coordinator. So they go back in that regard. I hate this move because Frank Wilson is an incredible recruiter. I would hate to see Harlem Berry. I would hate to see Caden Jerome go to Oxford because they're going to go with their man, Frank Wilson. Frank Wilson has incredible ties. He's from New Orleans. He knows how to recruit, especially that area. So to me, that just gives me a whole lot of positive, like, man, I hope this isn't one of those moves that in 2 years, Lane Kiffin is like, man, I shouldn't have let Frank get out the door. And then yesterday, Frank Wilson tweets out a picture at practice. He's right there. Kiffin's right next to him. And then the hashtag is like, it's all love or something like that. I'm like, just keep him in the building. Just keep him here. Don't give him that edge in Oxford. So we shall see how all this shakes up.
You know, I texted you something on your birthday, which happy birthday again, by the way. I said your birthday present is LSU retaining Blake Baker. If it were one of the two, would you rather have Blake Baker return?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. I have to say that because just what Blake Baker has done, his first stint in Baton Rouge, they were not a great defense. He really left his mark, and all the players raved about him. It's not every time that you get a DC or an offensive coordinator that they just love, and the guys in the building just loved Blake Baker. He brings a different energy. He is out there wearing cleats, trying to bust heads off at practice and busting moves and shaking people out of their cleats. And so I think a guy like that with that energy brings just a different dynamic. And I think you see that the product on the field. What he did at Missouri was impressive. He comes back here. Historically, it was the worst defense fielded in the history of LSU football. Now this year, look what he's done. So to me, I think he and Corey Raymond and Frank Wilson are the three guys that I felt like Lane Kiffin should hold on to. I think out of those three, Frank Wilson might be the least. That one's not going to hurt as much as Blake Baker or Corey Raymond would, but it stings, and I'm going to hate to see him in the blue and red, but I guess that's what he's going to do. But he's still going to coach the bowl game, so it's like he's still in it. It's a little spicy now, and then the next day after the bowl game, he's headed to Oxford. So.
Right. Speaking of that bowl game, it is right there in Houston, and you're facing the Houston Cougars. Correct me if I'm wrong, but everything from my perspective is that this game means a hell of a lot more to Houston than it does to LSU for a multitude of reasons. Number one, obviously, you have the Lane Kiffin drama, saga, all of that in there. Two, I think this LSU team will just look completely different from last year. So unless you're just trying to put on good tape for Lane Kiffin, I just think that this team will look different after the transfer portal window opens. And then it's just it feels humdrum for LSU. Am I completely off? Is this LSU team focused and ready to go and trying to prove something here at the end of the season? Because I just see this as a one-way game as far as who cares perspective.
Yeah, I think you absolutely nailed it. I think Houston wants this game. I think that they have something to prove for LSU. It's more about these players trying to impress Lane Kiffin. This is their opportunity of saying, hey, if I didn't get the reps here, let me give you something on tape to go off of, and let me show you what I can do in practice, because he's obviously there in practice. This game is not very interesting on any level, and I hate to say that because I'm one of these people who's like, yeah, go play the bowl game, leave it all out on the field. But to me, it's just kind of it's boring, and that sounds bad, and that's no disrespect to Houston because I think they're a great team. Right. Yeah, what Willie Fritz has done is impressive, and he did that for 8 seasons in Uptown at Tulane. So there's a lot of connections there. I didn't know this until reading about it. Willie Fritz's daughter is an LSU grad. His OC was on the staff last year, and so there's a lot of connections, but it's just. I don't know what this team's going to look like. I know that right now you have one quarterback, and that's Michael Van Buren. He has not played the best down the stretch in his opportunities, which is understandable. That there's a reason why Brian Kelly didn't go to him mid-season when he knew that Garrett Nussmeier was hurt. He thought that Garrett Nussmeier with a hurt abdomen was a better option than Michael Van Buren. It is what it is. I like Michael Van Buren. I think he is a great guy off the field. I think he's an athlete, but I just don't think he is that QB1 that LSU needs. I think you need a guy with more experience and a guy with more athletic ability with his arm. He's a great runner. He's one of those that doesn't really know if he wants to run or pass, and so it's kind of like, So, he's not the guy for this team, but he's the best one right now, and he's basically your only option for QB1. So we're going to roll with it. I know a lot of big names are opting out not to play in the bowl, so it's not very exciting. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going. I'm taking off for a week and a half for Christmas.
Hey, you deserve it.
You earned it. You earned it.
Right? There ain't enough barbecue in the state of Texas to get me over there for that game, so... I'm staying here in Baton Rouge.
Speaking of Michael Van Buren, I do have a question. Do you think he is obviously he's got something to prove here? He hasn't really played great since being thrusted into the QB1 role. Do you think he's playing to stay at LSU or to put out some tape there and enter the transfer portal for some of these coaches?
I would assume it would be a little bit of both. When we talked to him, he did say, this is where I want to be. This is where I want to stay. I love it here. So I think he's kind of talking to the coaching staff, letting them know, hey, you're my number one option, but if you don't want me to be here, I'll go find something else. I wouldn't be surprised if he might stay, and I just say that because of what we've seen from Lane Kiffin with like a Jackson Dart who maybe wasn't super accurate, but after being in that system, it really learned and grew and became a better quarterback. I don't know if Michael Van Buren fits that mold for Kiffin. He is a bit undersized. I will tell you, the few games that I covered for LSU with him as QB1, it was hard to find him over the line. I'm like struggling to find him. And that's just not typical with a Lane Kiffin quarterback. So who knows? But yeah, I'd be surprised if he stayed in Baton Rouge. I feel like he'll probably find a better destination for next season.
Jessa, one more question before we let you go. I know you're super busy. We've seen a lot of quarterbacks enter the transfer portal here in the last few days to weeks. When you look at some of those names, who sticks out to you that are currently in the portal?
Man, if you get a healthy DJ Lagway, I think he is what I saw from him 2 years ago in the swamp on one leg, and what he did for that offense was impressive. We all know that he's been battling injury for about a year and a half now. He was not healthy this season, so we saw him struggle. I think the talent that we saw from him when he was healthy his freshman year was impressive. I mean, he was a game changer for that team, and it was, I mean, just to see him take over the ball game, what he did on one leg was like, oh, if you get him healthy, he is a top tier elite quarterback. He's got the arm. He knows how to read a defense. He puts the ball where it needs to go. He was super impressive, but the knock is his health. Right. If he's not healthy, he's not much good to you. So to me, it's just, I feel like DJ Lagway, if he's healthy, he's the one that sticks out by far.
Absolutely. Do you see any first round upsets?
Well, she did say Tulane. She wouldn't be surprised.
Oh, I was going to say, if you're going to stand on that, maybe Alabama beating Oklahoma, Miami beating Texas A&M.
The Dukes.
I don't think Bama gets it done, y'all. Bama has looked so bad.
All right.
And I mean, obviously they had 3 turnovers and OU's defense scored 17 points off of those, but like that defense is for real. It's supposed to be cold and windy. It plays into their favor. It's a home game. Like, I don't know. But then, I mean, Bama hadn't lost to the same team in like 100-something years. So it's like, I don't know. I'm so excited. Not gonna lie, guys. I'm about to be off for a week and a half, and I'm gonna watch all the football and drink eggnog daiquiris, and I'm excited about life.
Gosh, I'm gonna live vicariously through you all weekend. That is awesome. That is awesome. I will let you get to that first drink, my lady, and you have fun. Enjoy your belated birthday and enjoy college football. We always appreciate you on the show.
I appreciate y'all. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to you too. Jessica Boucher joining us from Baton Rouge, Louisiana. I don't know if I agree with her Tulane take. That Alabama take, though, is really interesting. It makes me question my pick.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely am out on the Tulane pick. I do not like the Tulane pick by any means. I'm not on that green wave. I'm not on that green wave by any means. I still am sticking strong to Ole Miss is making the national championship. You can clown me all you want on social media. My DMs are open. You can respond to me. You can say whatever you want. I'm just going to laugh. But I would appreciate your guys' input. But I think there are some crazy times going on in college football, and as much as I'm looking forward to this postseason, I can't wait until everything is done, because that's when the transfer portal and everything is going to open up on January 2nd, and it's going to get crazy.
Just to see those quarterbacks that were on your graphic made it really interesting to see where those dominoes start to fall as we get closer and closer to that transfer portal opening on January 2nd. Coming up next year on Southeast Sports Plus, we head over to Austin, Texas. Plenty to talk about. That's outside of the college football game, the bowl game that Texas is playing against Michigan. We'll break it down with our good friend Noah Gross next. back here on Southeast Sports Plus. We have Noah Gross in the house. We've had a lot of Austin this week. There's a lot going on over there with a new defensive coordinator in Will Muschamp. Noah, first of all, thank you so much for your time here. We will get into this huge matchup with Michigan coming up. But we got Roger's thoughts yesterday on the Muschamp news. How'd that land with you, knowing that it's a guy that is a former SEC head coach and with the track record that he has?
Yeah, to me, this is a pretty aggressive move by Sark to be able to let go a guy in Pete Kwiatkowski that has been receiving largely rave reviews from everybody around this Texas program. You ask any of the defenders, and they'll just gush about Pete Kwiatkowski and his knowledge of the game. But Sark spoke today about bringing in Muschamp, letting Kwiatkowski go, and a couple of things are very interesting in the discussion today. One, Sark loves the energy that Muschamp brings. I know you guys have talked about covering him before. There's video of him playing or coaching at Texas from 2008 to 2010, and he's just like, you know, as the announcer said, like on 6 Red Bulls, like chest bumping everybody, like he's just like, he does the energy of a strength coach, which is crazy. But Sark's like reference, like that's what they want and that's what they need. And one of their other guys on defense, Johnny Anson, who's coached linebackers and has been the co-DC previously, brings that juice as well. And Sark was like, that's what we need. Whereas Pete Kwiatkowski's like so reserved and like a tactician, but Sark was like, they need to be more aggressive quick. In the SEC, like you can't take a step back, and Muschamp just seems like an absolute leader of that unit. And one other thing he mentioned was, Texas took a bit of a step back this year, kind of on both sides. The defense was rough at points, but the offense was kind of inefficient. Sark was like, hiring Muschamp frees me up to work on the offense more, where he's like, I don't have to worry about that. I trust him so much where it's like he's the ultimate leader on that back end, and I don't have to worry about it. So that is like he thinks a huge plus, and that's going to help the offense as well.
Do you think part of this was also trying to fire Dwayne Akina?
Yeah, I mean, coaches love coaches, so they're not going to badmouth anybody that leaves. And like I always say, if you ask a coach about an opponent, guaranteed it could be an 0-10 group of toddlers. They'd be like, well, it's a very well-coached program over there, like no matter what. But so Sark was asked about Akina leaving, and he, like Muschamp, was here previously in some of those golden days and came back. And Sark was kind of open about the back end not being what it was or what he expected it to be. We were listening to that press conference today, and he didn't go out and say, like, Akina didn't do this, Akina didn't do that. He didn't even mention his name. But he was like, the defensive backfield was a bit of a struggle this past year and some communication issues. And this is a unit that came in so talented, and I think some of their players took a step back. I think Michael Taft didn't have the year he was hoping for. He had to fight through some things as well. But they had some, I think, more youngsters play than they wanted. So it was a group that didn't quite exceed expectations the way they wanted. So, Akina's certainly part of it. And then with Muschamp coming in, I don't think he's going to be a full-time positional coach as well, but Sark said to start, he's going to work mostly with the defensive backs.
Absolutely. The other bit of news today was on the offensive side, is Arch Manning saying that he was coming back in 2026. In fact, I think the actual wording of it was that, I guess, a representative or somebody said it, I guess, for him. I don't know if he has said it, because I don't think he said it with his own mouth.
His dad said it, right?
I think, but was it his dad, or was it his granddad? Somebody said it, but Roger clarified the fact that we hadn't heard it from him. And all signs point to him being a Longhorn in 2026. I thought the breaking news would be the other way around. Either he's going to the pros, or if he is entering the transfer portal. But using this bowl game and what he can be in 2026, what are your prospects on Arch as he ends the 2025 season from hype to finishing the season?
Yeah, I think he's ending it in a really good spot for this Texas team. And we talked a couple weeks ago about it'll be interesting to see which players enter the transfer portal for Texas, and there's not many I would be surprised by. C.J. Baxter, one that I certainly was not surprised by hitting the transfer portal. DeAndre Moore, a guy that preseason, well, now he's in the portal, but preseason when he was talking to us, he said his goal was to win the Blitnikoff, best receiver in the country. And like, he was one of the players where like you couldn't even laugh at him for saying that. Like, he was one of the best guys in the country, and he's just been getting better and better every year in Austin. So he loses a major weapon there. Ryan Wingo didn't have the year he wanted to. So we'll see that that's another position group. I think wide receiver and defensive back, where they thought they were so loaded, but they ended up having to play more young guys than they anticipated because of injury and then some not so great performances. So I think Sark has referenced when Sark talks about a guy a lot, a young guy that, I or other media members or fans might like brush off and be like, okay, he's just gassing this guy up. He means it. And I think Dalen McCutcheon is one of those guys who got more run late in the year, and a player that maybe a lot of fans haven't heard of or aren't that familiar with. I think he's going to get a lot of run in this bowl game as well, and they're really comfortable with him kind of stepping into that DeAndre Moore role. We'll see how well he's able to do it. But yeah, for Arch, I think he's ending it in a really good spot regardless of what happens on New Year's Eve day.
I believe that we're 2 weeks to the day away from the transfer portal opening. Which position group would you expect Sark and the Longhorns to target the most?
Yeah, well, they're already in a fight for the running back from Florida, so running back room and then offensive line as well. We'll see defensively. I didn't think linebacker was going to have to be one of those, but with Anthony Hill in the draft, Leonga Lafau in the transfer portal as well. Those were their main two guys. And yes, they like Ty Anthony Smith, but if he's like your unquestioned number one, that's not where you want to be heading into this next season. So Texas has, it seems like, I don't have their financials in front of me. I'm not their general manager, but like it seems like they have more money to play with this year and bringing people in. And that's a good thing, but it's also, in my opinion, a bad thing because the last couple of years they have not had as many holes to fill. It's been very targeted. It's okay, this is a luxury ad here. You get one good edge, and then you maybe can add a receiver there. But this year, it's clear like they need maybe like 6 or to 8 impact players if you combine offense and defense. So I think that's going to be a big focus for Texas. And there's a decent amount of positions, so I think they're going to be very aggressive early on. And Sark, another thing he's mentioned is the silver lining of not making the playoff is, the last couple of years, it's Big 12 championship, college football playoff. Then it's SEC championship, college football playoff. You have so much more time now, as he says, to audit the program. And that's part of the reason why this firing and hiring happened, because he's like, we could kind of see the cracks before, but everything is moving so quick and they kept winning that they couldn't really slow it down. So now you have time to attack the portal in a different way. So it doesn't surprise me that there's a lot of players leaving and there'll be ones coming in.
Do you believe that what the return on the people that they do get will outweigh what they already have? I know getting Muschamp in the building will be huge, but also, from a financial perspective, they're one of few schools that really don't have to worry about being outbid by a lot of other people. I know the House Sediments coming in and all of that, but do you expect this team, when they come back next year, to look completely retooled? I think a lot like what we saw with the New England Patriots. Like they just overhauled it in 1 year. The team looked different. Do you think that's going to be the case with Texas?
I think Texas, not that they lost direction this past year, but they were so talented, but a lot of the pieces didn't quite fit as well as they had anticipated, I think. So especially offensively, they kind of figured out what worked and what didn't. And that's why a lot of those young guys got some more run late in the season. It's because everyone that you were expecting early in the season to be like the unquestioned alpha in this room or this room wasn't living up to expectation. So, yeah, I believe in their transfer portal philosophy. I'll be honest. They've had a couple maybe not as big hits as they've wanted over the past couple of years. I think 2 years ago when they got Trey Moore from UTSA, the edge rusher, and he was like the guy in the portal. And they didn't need a ton that year. He kind of started slow, and he was good for Texas, but I don't think he was quite what they expected him to be. But for the Longhorns, I think you look at like an anchor of a team, right? Like what are the most important positions in football? Quarterback, unquestioned. I think Arch Manning is everything they're going to want him to be next year. Left tackle, Trevor Gooseby was one of the best in the SEC, stepping into his first year full starting. Edge rusher, Colin Simmons is probably the best in college football. So they have those positions figured out. And that's what I think is like the anchor of this team. And all those guys are, Arch will be heading into his second year starting, fourth year overall. Anthony Hill Colin Simmons will be heading into his third year. And then Trevor Gooseby, his third year as well. So these are some veterans that this team is anchored by. So it can be some complementary pieces in the transfer portal.
I want to touch on one guy that you mentioned that Texas might be linked to in Jaden Baugh. And there's been some talk about, Texas was tampering with him to try to get him to enter the portal. And my answer to that is everybody does it, so quit complaining. Yeah. But how big of a get would it be for Sark if they were to land Jaden Baugh from Florida?
Interesting because I want to believe in Trey Wisner, what he's done for Texas the past couple of years, but for him to be like the guy, no doubt about it, is a bit of a question mark, and he wasn't even that this past year. He had some good games late in the season, but man, he did not have the same explosiveness that Texas fans were hoping for and the team was hoping for as well. And he's such a patient runner, but sometimes it just doesn't appear that he can hit the hole with the same ferocity that someone else can. And then this last year they had CJ Baxter, who was clearly still hobbled, not himself, not what they wanted him to be. So there was a lack of explosiveness. So if they can get Baugh, I think that would totally change the running back room. And I think Texas has already had some youngsters like Ricky Stewart enter the transfer portal again. So there might be writing on the wall that like running back has been a depth room for Texas the past couple of years where they've had a lot of guys been able to contribute. But I think they want a dog in that room. Sark's always talked about, I think every year before this, he's had a 1,000-year rusher as a head coach or OC, something like that. This year didn't get close. The running game was very, very non-existent for much of the year. So I think they want an unquestioned number one guy, and I don't think that's going to be Wisner. So if it's Baugh or somebody else, that would not surprise me.
Absolutely. Let's flip over to hoops now. Texas will close out the regular season against a team that, quite frankly, I never heard of, but they're right there in your neck of the woods, Maryland Eastern Shore.
Princess Anne. Princess Anne.
I had never heard of this team, but then they'll open up SEC play right after that. I just saw their schedule. It is Tennessee, Alabama, Vandy, 2 of those on the road. That is a daunting schedule over the next about 2 weeks or so. What do you think this team is? I'm going to go ahead and give them the win over Eastern Shore. So 9-4 going into SEC play. Where do you see them as they go into the conference?
Maryland Eastern Shore, I do know. You have a friend from the Eastern Shore, and they did play against Maryland one of the years I was in school. You know, not historically not a great program. So I think that's fair to assume Texas will take down the Warhawks or some sort of Hawks, whatever type of avian mascot they have.
The Hawks, you got it. The Eastern Shore Hawks.
That's balling out.
But as Texas heads into SEC play, the problem for the Longhorns last year on the men's side was they did not get at all what they wanted from the transfer portal. As many teams in college basketball are, they were like totally anchored by the portal. They had like 1 or 2 players returned, and those guys were injured. And Texas got like a couple players from Indiana State last year. Didn't pan out at all. Jason Kent, Julian Larry, they didn't live up to expectation. A couple of these, I think Texas targeted veterans that had winning pedigree and were like decent role players at previous schools. Think about Simeon Wilcher at St. John's, Camden Heide at Purdue. These guys, to me, need to have bigger roles. And Texas targeted them and thought, okay, they can have a bigger role here. They know how to handle big games, which I'm sure they do. But so far, it's been kind of a feeling out process for this team where, like, it's not one of those teams where you're like, man, anybody can step up and have 25 on any given night. And all those good teams are saying that's what makes us great. Texas is not there yet. I think they need to have all these transfers that were like the 3rd or 4th option on their previous school need to be like, maybe it's my night to be the first option, because right now the offensive game isn't quite where it needs to be. I'm confident Sean Miller will get them better defensively because that's been an issue as well.
Noah, I'll give you about 30 seconds to a minute to talk about that Maryland-Michigan game.
Yeah, actually, I was in the state of Maryland, and I was watching with my friend in Baltimore at a sports bar, and we were debating on should we go to the game or not. You know, there was a red out, it was rocking. But as soon as I thought about it, I'm like, oh, they're going to lose by 75, so we might as well not make it to the game. And I will say, like, that team actually fought, and 2 of their best players, one was ejected, one was hurt. Pharrell Payne, please stop playing with my heart like that, man. So, Maryland played as good a game as they have all season, which is rough that you played as good a game as you have all season and, like, still lost by 15 or 20 at home. So, you know, the ceiling is very low for that team, but that was slightly encouraging.
No, hopefully at this time of the year next year, we're going to be talking about Maryland and Texas in the first round of the college football playoff.
Hopefully.
Man, you will not see me. I will be at the game, okay?
I expect live updates from you.
I love it.
Yeah, I'll be a mess.
No, you're awesome, man. Thank you so much for your time, man. I appreciate it here on Southeast Sports Plus.
Happy holidays.
All right, happy holidays, guys. Go Terps. Be well.
Go Terps. Gotta love it from our good buddy Noah Gross. And I pulled up the schedule just to find out who Texas' first 5 games were in the SEC, and I saw Maryland Eastern Shore. Like, I hear of new college basketball teams all the time, this is Exhibit A today.
I had to look that one up. I'm pretty familiar with Maryland. My fiance is from there, but I saw it was closer to Salisbury, Maryland, which I've actually flown into that airport before. And let me tell you, you step foot off the plane and you're within a minute you can be out to your car.
Wow.
Yes,
wow. So like the most efficient airport of all time.
Yes, you literally, there's no jet bridge, there's no nothing. You just walk down the stairs off the plane, walk through the lobby, which is probably no bigger than this studio, and then you can just go to your car and be on your way 2 minutes getting off the plane.
Shout out Maryland Eastern. Sure.
Talk about you want like private jet experience. There you
go. Private jet experience at a commercial airport. We will close up this show here on Southeast Sports Plus ahead of the college football playoffs. Stay with us.
And before we go, we'll talk about these college football playoff first round matchups starting tonight at 7 o'clock. It's the Alabama Crimson Tide taking on the number 8 Oklahoma Sooners. And then a 3-game slate tomorrow starting at 11 a.m. Central. Miami, the America's underdog, according to a lot of people around the country ahead of this matchup against Texas A&M. And then Tulane, also potentially America's underdog. Ever so noisy Ole Miss Rebels, and the Oxford's just going crazy right now. And then that 12-5 matchup, James Madison taking on Oregon at 6:30 Central tomorrow. So just great slate of matchups. It's gonna be crazy. I can't wait. We're finally here.
That is kind of sandwiched in blowouts, but the thing is the way that the schedule works out. You have a great game, in my opinion, tonight. Could be a blowout in the JMU game. Could be a blowout in the Ole Miss Tulane game. But you're too far from your television because you have another good game sandwiched right there in the middle. So I just think that the way the scheduling works out, it's going to be a really good
scheduling worked great. I look at the 8-9 matchup last year, Tennessee, Ohio State. That was a dud. This game is going to be a dud in regards to it being actually close. I mean, Ohio State kind of ran Tennessee out of Buckeye country.
Right.
Is 3:57 on a Friday, and this is our college football. I know we had our brackets earlier, but this time we're going to focus on betting.
Yes.